Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yashvendra Singh, Executive Editor of ETCIO and the moderator of this fireside chat on the topic Continuous Data Protection for Continuous Business Growth. As data continues to grow exponentially, traditional backup and recovery solutions are hard-pressed to keep pace. Challenges faced include downtime and inability to recover mission-critical applications and databases, resulting in low productivity and revenue loss. Can newer technologies such as CDP or continuous data protection ensure enhanced backup efficiency? To answer exactly this question and more, we have with us today two very senior enterprise technology experts. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Kirti Patil, Joint President and CTO, Kotak Life Insurance, and Mr. Sandeep Bhambure, MD, Veeam Software, India and SAARC. A warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you, sir. Yashvendra.
I would like to open up the discussion with you, Ms. Patil. Ma'am, continuous data protection, or CDP, is widely viewed as a viable alternative to many backup and replication products. What advantages does CDP offer over traditional backup? Because if you, look at all the cutting edge technologies such as analytics, AI, IoT, edge, AR, VR, the common denominator between all of these is that they are intensely data driven. So it goes without saying that data has to be managed and protected in a much better way. What value can CDP bring? Your thoughts on this, ma'am?
See, if one were to look at the traditional backup solutions, typically the backup would be fired once a day, at most twice a day, right? A point in time, typically during off-peak hours. So you would have data which was old, right? And then whenever you needed to restore it, you would look at it, which is a day old, 12-hour old data. Whereas continuous data protection, it assures you that you have the data available with you continuously, which means you really have the real-time data. In certain workloads, in certain applications, you really need to have continuous data available with you. So while organizations are implementing CDP, and we are also doing that, I don't think they will really replace the traditional backup solutions. Okay, they will complement, and it is good to know that now CDP solutions are available for other technologies also. I remember I implemented a CDP long ago, I think about 15 years ago maybe, which was for the IBM I series, because those systems were always used to do journaling, okay, and therefore it was very easy to have a CDP solution around that. But now we are happy to see that now CDP solutions are available for other technologies. There are various methods of doing continuous data protection.
Sure, ma'am. So Sandeep, like ma'am said, this is going to be a complementary solution. It is not going to replace traditional backup solutions. But, companies will definitely lose competitive advantage if they don't effectively utilize data. We always knew this, but it has become even more relevant and more important in 2021. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so as Ms. Patil rightly pointed out, customers, enterprises are looking at CDP as a complement, to what already is there. And, the view we have about data protection and continuous data protection that matters is, the traditional backup solutions that have been, in the enterprise for maybe a couple of decades, or even, as, recent as maybe 2018, independent analysts forecast that they are very likely to either re-evaluate their availability strategy or replace the incumbent backup solution, even if the decision was taken as recently as 2018. So over a span of just about 4 years, we're looking at a big churn that would happen in enterprise, looking at backup and availability as a core, and look at replacing the solutions, or allowing space for more modern technologies to coexist. And the reason for that primarily being, over the last decade, lots have changed in the data center. It was all about, legacy applications, and then, big virtualization drive happening in the data center. And then when we look at the next decade, it's going to be about cloud acceleration, multi-cloud, and so on. So the requirements of the enterprise from backup has changed. Customers are looking at not only just protecting, but how can you do replication from, pure availability platform, how can you continuously protect the data? And that's the point that we've been discussing, so that the RPO is no longer in minutes, but in just few seconds, because that's the only loss, if at all, that enterprise can afford to really have in case of a disaster. Now, the traditional availability platforms or backup platforms have not been able to do that. Kirti rightly pointed out that there have been different ways and means in which how this was achieved in possibly the IBM or the physical world, whether using storage technologies and so on. But when you look at the virtual environment now, it's possible to achieve CDP, which kind of really drives the RPO to a completely different level that the business expects.
Sure, Sandeep. Great. So coming back to you, ma'am, CDP has been there for long. You yourself said, you implemented a solution 15 years back. But when they started off, CDP was viewed as a game-changing technology in data protection. Has it lived to its promise? Has the promise lived up to the hype? What are the challenges in its adoption, and how can its acceptance in enterprises be accelerated?
Like I said, it is complementary, right? So wherever there is a business need, CDP should be implemented, and it has lived up to its promise. Okay, and I'll give a few examples where we are using it in our organization, and I'll also tell you what I said in the beginning, that why it will not replace backup traditional backup solutions. And I think Sandeep did touch upon the newer workloads. Okay, virtualization, right? And we are using a continuous data protection tool for our virtual environment. So at the virtualization layer, and I'll tell you what it does, okay? It not only protects your data and you have real-time data available, but it is doing at a virtual level. So you don't really have to go to the hosts, okay? And that is really the advantage that it brings to the table. And because the technology is also now mature enough, okay, the bandwidth that we need, okay, because we are using it for building resiliency between our DC and DR, okay, and the bandwidth that is required is far minimal than what traditional backup solutions would take. So I think it has matured. We also use continuous replication for at a storage level. Okay, so these are the two use cases where we use continuous replication, and I also mentioned the legacy system where we continue to use CDP. But we are a regulated industry, Yashvendra and Sandeep, right? And business also needs to have data at a point in time. Okay, while it is good to protect the data continuously, make it available for the business to take decisions, be it for resiliency or be it for reporting. It could be some alternate workload, but we need to have backup as on a particular time. It could be a month end, it could be a year end, and business may want to restore it at that point in time. That is where we continue to use the traditional backup. So we have a good mix of both, and we continuously evaluate, Yash. Okay, whenever there is a new workload, we evaluate whether it should go the CDP way or it should go the traditional way, and whatever suits best to the business requirement, we go and implement it.
Great inputs there, ma'am. So Sandeep, what's your take on this? There is significant investment in physical disk storage when it comes to continuous data protection. Besides, the CDP server can become a single point of failure. Other challenges that come to your mind, what would it actually take to accelerate its percolation, its proliferation in enterprises?
I think the biggest trigger, Yashvendra and Kirti, in my observation, has been, a simple thing like moving from version X to version X dot Y, as far as the backup and availability is concerned. And what we have been observing in particularly the insurance industry is that the migration itself from version A to version A plus B, which is the next version, is a huge effort. It's a huge effort. It will go on for months. The migration itself can take a lot of resources, and this is what is driving customers to look at not ripping and replacing necessarily the backup and the availability platform, but evaluate and assess how the modern availability solutions can fit into their scheme of things. Who can take the customers beyond the traditional boundaries of backup and replication, help in compliance and reporting. Kirti rightly pointed out that this is a very regulated industry. So what customers are asking is, okay, can you publish for us a report that can tell the health of the IT infrastructure, which we can then share back to the regulators or to internal auditors and help there, can the modern workloads then at the same time, be recovered to an extent of, implementing a solution like a continuous data protection, and how easy it is going to be. So we are seeing that migration from version A to version B in itself is a big trigger for insurance companies and enterprises to evaluate, some modern solutions like Veeam. We've been kind of, helping customers go beyond the traditional boundaries of backup, help in, monitoring and analytics. You completely kind of change the whole idea of how backup should be viewed. Instead of kind of looking at data as, I would say, non-performing assets lying somewhere there, using it once in a while to just recover the data. The approach that customers are liking is, how could we reuse that data, for driving more value to the business. Whether and then kind of, why is CDP becoming so important? Because we are just not looking at, recovering of data, but looking at how do you also secure your business from potential ransomware attacks. How can you leverage, the backup data and try to reuse it for business? So I think, there are several triggers, including the need to be more agile in the business. Insurance companies spend 80% of their budgets in just keeping the lights on, IT budgets. So there's little left for really driving innovation. I think if we are able to kind of, change that mix and kind of help IT can look at more money being allocated for innovation, and that can really drive more value for the business.
Moving on, ma'am, how difficult is it to deploy and manage software-based CDP solutions? How do they compare in terms of cost with traditional backup and recovery solutions? I'm raising these questions because, all these issues have suddenly become even more important in the post-pandemic world. So what's your take on this, ma'am?
See, a software-defined solution is definitely a lot simpler to manage, okay, and has a shorter deployment cycle because you're not really waiting for a hardware or an appliance to be shipped to you. So certainly, the deployment life cycle is smaller. It is easy to manage because you get out of the box operations and management dashboards, okay, which is what we need. And just let me talk about the criticality of data in insurance, right? I mean, data is critical for every organization, but our policies, especially life insurance, our policies are for the long term, right? Typically 20 years, and so we need to have the data for that much time plus 7 years beyond that. So the longevity of data is also very, very critical for us. But the way we look at data, and I'll tell you, see, we are an insurance company. For me, a CDP or a backup solution is like my insurance, right? Because I am protecting customer data. So therefore, we definitely evaluate it every time, and we have not drawn up a backup strategy and 4 years ago and forgotten about it. Every time we evaluate. Now, coming back to the CDP versus the backup, and I'll tell you what could be some of the challenges that organizations like us face while implementing a CDP, and this is for Sandeep also. We would need, equal perhaps hardware, right, on both sides. And because it is continuous protection of data, there will be overload on the primary server from which the data is backed up, right? So therefore, there is investment required here, but organizations are willing to invest it for critical load. Not all load that I carry and that I support is as critical, which deserves the CDP. So there we use the traditional backup, but otherwise we use the CDP. And the teams have actually found a great benefit in implementing software-based solutions. But what we are looking at, if there is a software which could manage both, which is the CDP as well as the traditional backup, that is what the operational teams would really be happy about.
Great. So, Sandeep, is there such a software that can manage the two? And do you also echo ma'am's sentiments here, with respect to the cost and manageability?
I completely agree with what Kirti is saying in terms of, the flexibility that a software-defined, availability platform can drive for the business. And particularly, when looking at backup and CDP from one single platform, which is what Veeam delivers to its customers, is is really something that customers have been asking for. So when it comes to Veeam, we, like I said, we go from backup to replication, help in compliance and orchestration of workloads in a cloud. Look at continuous data protection for your more modern workloads, which have not been actually protected, so far. And I agree that you don't need to really deploy CDP for all the workload, because there is a overhead on the underlying infrastructure or hardware that companies will have to really invest. So we can choose what is more strategically important for business and for IT, and then deploy, based on the flexibility of a software-defined architecture. So what businesses then hence can have is, not only agility, for kind of protecting the modern workloads, but keeping the cost in control. What Veeam endeavors to deliver is to be the most trusted provider of backup solution in the space of cloud data management. Okay. So what essentially that means is, well, we will not only kind of, help drive more value for business in terms of helping leverage and reuse of the backup data. We will also help businesses de-risk from potential ransomware attacks, by introducing, technologies like CDP, deliver more value for business, like, using data mining and AI on backup information, which has been lying around for such a long time. And, then help in acceleration of modernizing IT, because, you can accelerate faster, whether it's your car or whatever vehicle that you're driving, or even IT for that matter, when you really feel safe that in case of an eventuality, you will be able to recover faster. So Kirti rightly pointed out that, in insurance, I mean, you're kind of helping your customers, but even you need to be insured at the back end. And that's where what we really want to be. We want to make sure that we insure our customers against potential loss and impact or any threats that could be there for the data.
Sure. So the insurer also has to be insured.
Yes.
Great. So coming back to you, ma'am, talking specifically about Kotak Life Insurance, how has CDP helped your business? What benefits have accrued since its implementation?
First of all, I think in the beginning, Sandeep did mention about the RPO, right? And traditionally, the DRVCP plans spoke about RPO 4 hours, 8 hours, okay? And businesses can't afford that kind of RPO today, right? And two reasons, of course, because the customers will not wait, okay? Two is everything is really working on systems today. Everything is automated and digitized. So if your recovery point time is longer, businesses will not know how to recover from that, okay? Because they don't have any manual way of working. So it is very important for the RPO to be near zero as much as possible for the critical workloads. That is an area where it has absolutely helped us. The other area is that because it is incremental, right? You really don't have to keep track, right? Whatever changes gets replicated. So even for application changes, and I'm not talking of data here, Sandeep and Yashvendra, we use it, okay? From our primary data center to our DR site, even the changes in the applications are, I mean, we ensure that they are available at the DR site using the CDP. Otherwise, it was a big challenge for me to have a change management process, okay? Whatever changes in the DC, how do I ensure that the replication happens and it gets tested? CDP is helping us there as well. And like I said, the bandwidth that is required is much lesser than the traditional backup and recovery tools. The third area is, and Sandeep did mention, and I mentioned at the beginning, that for certain workloads, we don't want to run the workloads on the primary host, right? But we want real-time data for that. Reporting is one such thing, okay? Today, people need to have information, real-time information, real-time, right? And so we run real-time reporting workloads through a CDP backed up data. AI analytics, we have not started using CDP there. We are in our journey in building that, but we are going to use CDP there as well, so that we don't overload the primary host. At the same time, we give business the data that they want.
Sure.
That is how
Great
this has
plans
helped
there,
us,
ma'am.
Yashvendra. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Great plans. So Sandeep, how are you as a vendor expanding the market for CDP? What kind of support, what kind of hand holding are you doing for enterprise technology leaders to expand the market?
So yeah, so like I pointed out earlier, so we are in our next release, which is V11. We are supporting CDP. Okay, and particularly for the VMware workloads, which is and traditionally, if you look at backup softwares, were not really leveraging the APIs of vSphere, to really drive those kind of CDP requirements, which we have done, which means that there is little or no friction. There's no friction at all in terms of kind of delivering on the CDP capabilities for business. But having said that, I think what I like to draw upon, is, the insurance industry, particularly, from little bit from the business standpoint, I have offerings, have products that are kind of getting pretty much commoditized, So businesses are really focused on how to create a different customer experience. And while doing that, there has been continuous kind of focus on keeping the cost in control. Now, there are different bunch of solutions available in the market that can help in CDP and real-time data protection, keeping RPO to zero. But the question is at what cost? Because you can only deliver a competitive product in the market when your costs are also at the same time in control. And the biggest challenge we believe for the insurance space is how much money is really getting spent in keeping the lights on. So yes, CDP has been implemented, it is available. The question is, can you do it possibly at 1/5 of the cost for the more critical workloads? And what Kirti rightly pointed out, when you say that, can evaluate which are the more critical workloads to have the CDP or continuous protection, it has an eye on definitely the cost aspect of it. As to, you don't want to really kind of look at the hind recovery point objectives for all the workloads, while it's desirable, but cost permitting. So having said that, and the point is, when enterprise look at solutions for backup and availability, software defined CDP, accelerated cloud adoption, reusability of data, this kind of helps to kind of keep the cost in control, while being able to deliver better experience for their customers. Because all of this modernization is kind of happening with one single objective of growing your business and revenues, keeping your customer experience top notch. When you're competing with so many other players in.
We're fast running out of time. So one final question before we wrap up the session. Ma'am, you've been there, done that with respect to CDP. So what are the multiple factors that organizations need to look at while considering CDP technology deployment? What message would you like to give to other CIOs looking to implement this solution?
So like I've been saying, first assess the workloads and the integration points. It is very important to look at both. Okay, what is the workload and what are the integration points? Is it on-prem? Is it cloud? Is it a modern app? Is it legacy? Please assess that first. Then find the right CDP solution. Whether you want host based, whether your workload will work on host based, whether software defined will work for you, whether you're looking at a hypervisor layer CDP which will work well for you, or a storage level. Okay, because you, like I said, there are plenty of solutions available. What suits your workload, what suits your business requirement is what you need to deploy. And the solution has to actually align with the business goals, right? Finally, we are achieving business objectives. Sometimes, hardware solution may also work because cost is also imperative, right? Sometimes no change in strategy may also work. Okay, just because CDP solutions are available, you need not go and implement, right? So I'm saying assess, take a hard look at it. Once you have taken a hard look at it, then go ahead and implement. Okay, because they are proven. It's not that they are not proven, but one needs to assess. Lastly, I think I would suggest that one needs to always plan for some headroom in the hardware, especially when one is looking at implementing a software based solution, right? Because you can do a POC, but but you can't run with the real workload, right? You don't want to throw away a good technology because you did not plan well. So if you don't have the necessary capacity to run it, then it will fail, and then businesses will be unhappy and you'll throw it out. So keep that headroom, plan well, and implement it. That is
Great.
what I would suggest.
Great. That's really very valuable inputs from ma'am. So Sandeep, your take on this? Like ma'am said, assessing the business technology landscape, that is key. Any best
Knowing where
practices that
you
come
are,
to your mind? Yeah.
absolutely. Knowing where you are and where you want to go, strategy and execution, extremely important. Sometimes it may just not make sense to, make any change at all. And I completely agree with Kirti as to what, she's been kind of pointing out over here. So, my take on CDP or in general, cloud data management as a strategy for organizations is that there is a need to reassess, okay, whether the traditional backup softwares are just doing the backup for them, or are they really helping advance and accelerate, adoption of cloud. Okay, because as we all kind of realize that in business it's becoming very important to kind of look at more modern solutions that can make our business very agile. So can the backup solution kind of really get you there? It may have worked for maybe last couple of decades or even a decade, but then there is a need to reassess whether it's going to help you over your journey in the next decade. And that assessment is going to be very important. What Veeam endeavors to do is kind of help customers in the journey of cloud data management. Look at not only protecting the physical environment, which always has a footprint in the data center, but you also have at the same time a good footprint of virtual, and then cloud, and multi-cloud, solutions, hyperscalers, public or private cloud service providers, and then you could be even experimenting or looking at containers as a strategy. So the question is, can you travel from point A to point B over the next decade without really kind of impacting your uptime, whether without losing out on data, and whether your backup and availability platform can help you deliver and de-risk your business. That's what I would suggest organizations to really evaluate, and always keep a watch on the cost of implementing some of the solutions that are there, or even for that matter just kind of maintaining those systems. It's a very expensive affair. I have several customers who have really switched over and moved to more modern platforms like Veeam. The reason that the sheer hardware that is required to run some of this availability platform makes it so expensive for organizations to own that solution. So you can't be kind of spending so much of your IT budgets in just maintaining some of the legacy systems. That's my closing remark on this.
Great.
Yashvendra, can I add something?
Sure, please, ma'am, go ahead.
So I want to say that digital transformation is an imperative for all of us, right? And unless and until you do infrastructure transformation, the digital transformation is not going to be sustainable, either from an agility point of view, customer experience point of view, or from a cost point of view. So we need to transform all layers of technology to be able to give the customer the experience that they want.
Great. So viewers, that's all we have time for. We hope the input shared by our esteemed speakers will go a long way in helping you manage and protect your data in a streamlined and seamless manner. Thank you, Ms. Patil. Thank you, Sandeep, for those valuable insights. And thanks to all our viewers for watching this session. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay glued to the ETCIO BFSI Conclave. Thank you.